The NFL released its all-decade team for the 2010s, and mostly it's what you would expect. However, we here at the Touchback want to shine the spotlight on those not so great players, and that's why we've compiled our 2010s not all-decade team. We'll get things started with the offensive line. We're not going to spend too much time on these picks, but let's run through them anyway. At tackle, we've got Greg Robinson, who was last seen going to jail for trying to sneak duffel bags full of marijuana over the Mexican border. And Andre Smith, a former top 10 draft pick who the Bengals, for some reason, have signed and released and signed and released and signed and released. It's hard to see why such a great franchise would have the number one pick in the NFL draft this year. As for the interior guys, if you want to read more about them, check out the article on the Touchback. The link is in the description. We will now move from the offensive line to the man behind center and the quarterback of the 2010 NFL not all-decade team is Blake Bortles, and this was a unanimous decision. It comes down to the fact that Blake Bortles got starts for half a decade, 5 years, and he had nothing to show for it. He never improved, turnover prone. He had the garbage time stats, which is great for fantasy. Like, we can't deny Blake Bortles being a meaningful fantasy quarterback, but in terms of real game action, he did nothing worthwhile on the field. And it's kind of wild to think that the Jaguars' brain trust thought all this guy needs is another offseason. This is going to be the year. 4 off seasons, the Jaguars went in with Blake Bortles and did nothing to improve the position at all. This, of course, is no disrespect to quarterbacks like Mike Glennon, Nathan Peterman in his 5 interception half, who also are not good, but they did not get 73 NFL starts in this decade, and that's really what separates Blake Bortles from the rest of the pack when it comes to not all-decade quarterbacks. The question now becomes, who is Bortles going to be handing the ball off to in the backfield? And we have a pair of running backs on our 2010 not all-decade team. First up is Lamar Miller, and I don't really want to talk about Lamar Miller. Lamar Miller is a boring running back. You can read the article on the Touchback for a little more information on Lamar Miller, but yeah, he's on the not all-decade team. The second running back is Bilal Powell. Get this. Bilal Powell's been in the league since 2011. I bet you didn't realize that, because I don't think anyone's realized that. What really makes Bilal Powell special in a sense here is just some of the running backs that have outtouched him in a season. It is this list is ridiculous. I'm going to read you the running backs who have received more carries than Bilal Powell in a season with the New York Jets. On his last legs, LaDainian Tomlinson, Sean Green, Chris Ivory, Chris Johnson, who now is facing murder for hire charges, but at the time in 2014 with the Jets was washed up. Matt Forte, Isaiah Crowell, Elijah McGuire, and Le'Veon Bell. For reasons I don't think anybody will ever truly know, the Jets felt compelled to keep around Bilal Powell despite not having the confidence in him to beat out any of these other running backs for carries during a season. We'll now move on from the running backs to the guys who will be catching passes from Blake Bortles. Let's start with the tight end, who we're going with Anthony Fasano. Anthony Fasano played for a really long time. He came into the league in 2006 as a second-round draft pick of the Dallas Cowboys, and he had a lot of hype around him. We forget that Anthony Fasano was kind of a stud tight end catching passes from Brady Quinn at Notre Dame. And then he got into the league and he just sort of became this really boring blocking tight end. I guess it wouldn't be so bad being a valuable contributor to playoff teams or teams that are good, but Fasano only made the playoffs once in the decade, and really a blocking tight end on an average to below average team just doesn't hold much value at all. It also gets you a spot on the Touchbacks 2010s NFL not all decade team. We're going to move on to the wide receivers now. And much like Fasano, these guys didn't catch a whole lot of passes during the decade. On one side of the field, we're going to have Marquise Goodwin, currently free agent, played for the San Francisco 49ers and before that the Buffalo Bills. Best known as a speedster, a deep threat, he's a guy I think we all felt had a lot of potential. We all sort of were waiting for the Marquise Goodwin breakout season, and it's never come. It wouldn't be so bad if Goodwin was still in his mid 20s, but Goodwin's been in the league for 7 seasons. He's turning 30. At this point, it feels like his chance to peak just isn't going to come, and we'll never see the player that we all thought Goodwin should be. At the other wide receiver position, we have Ted Ginn. Look, I know Ted Ginn gets sort of slotted in as this return man hybrid, but for a large part of this decade, teams have also been trying to play him as a number 2 receiver, and it just hasn't taken at all. I mean, you look at his reception totals, they're not good. He's only caught 50 passes more than twice in this decade, never had more than 800 yards. And really, he had that weird 10 touchdown season with Carolina in 2015. But as a receiver, he's just not been very effective, yet he keeps getting run out there. If we're being honest, the past 2 seasons with the New Orleans Saints, Ted Ginn has just been that guy lined up across from Michael Thomas who watches Michael Thomas catch passes. That's going to do it for the Touchbacks 2010s NFL Not All Decade team. Be sure to let us know who you have in your team in the comment section below. For the Touchback, I'm Cheyenne Hollis, and always take it out to the 25.